Okay, I'm Stan McChrystal, and I want to take some time with you today to talk about counterinsurgency and how important it is to us. And I'm going to use 8 imperatives to talk about this. And when we talk about counterinsurgency, we talk about it as a mission, often a military or combat mission. It's much wider than that. We'll talk about that today. But what we're really talking about today is people. We start with an insurgent, because if you're going to counter something, you have to have an insurgent to counter. So you start and you draw a picture of an insurgent, and that's fairly simple. And in this case, we don't know his name, we don't know where he lives, and we keep him as sort of a sterile figure. But he's not. He's got a family, he's got a history, he's got motivations why he does things and things that he wants in life, and we've got to remember that. And then we've got to think of ourselves, because we are the counterinsurgents. We and our Afghan partners, coalition, entire force, and we all have different motivations. Look at how we look. We all look a little different. We dress a little different. We have families. We have reasons we do things and how we act. And a lot of what we talk about today is going to be how we act, but it's going to be how we act in regard to the terrorist or the insurgent, but also how we act to another group of people. And this is really one of the things I want us to understand before we start to talk about the imperatives of counterinsurgency. I want you to talk about the entire idea. Because there's another group in here, and we'll try to personalize this. There's an individual here. And in this case, we say he's the Afghan people, or she's the Afghan people. In this case, we'll say he's Abdul Nasser Khan. And he's about 50 years old, which feels young to me now. He's got a wife. He's got a couple of sons. So he's got a wife, and he's got a couple of sons. And his sons are older now because he's older. They're 23 and 21. And so now we have a family. So now it's not just we're going to protect the people. Now the people have names. And they live in Zabul, Shinke village of Sajoy province. So suddenly, they got a place they live, they've got things they do, they've got relationships, they've got things they care about. In this case, Abdul Nasser Khan's a farmer. He grows wheat, corn, and watermelon in his garden. He has an orchard that he also works, all of which mean a lot. And if you know orchards, they take a long time to develop. So he's invested not only in land, but he's invested in something that can be destroyed, that can't be replaced rapidly. So he's got a lot of things he cares about. He's got material things, he's got family, he clearly is going to care about his religion and other friends and things, and he's got a history. He fought. He was in the Mujahideen against the Soviets. He didn't join the Taliban. When the Taliban came in 1994, he didn't join. But one of his sons did. This son joined the Taliban not because of ideology, but because one of his friends was killed. One of his friends were killed by coalition action some years ago, and to avenge that, he joined the Taliban. So now we have a family that's not quite so sterile, and we have an environment in which we're operating, in which we have a Taliban or an insurgent, and there are many insurgents, and we have a family of an Afghan who just wants to live, wants to be able to raise his family, wants to make a living. But suddenly it's not even so clear, because in fact one of his sons is one of the insurgents. And so we start with the very complexity. So what is a counterinsurgency effort? First off, it's an argument for the support of the people. What it is 2 different groups are trying to convince the people represented by this family to support them. The government, in this case the government of Afghanistan, is trying to convince them that they can provide a better future and that the people should give them the legitimacy as the natural government of Afghanistan. The insurgents are trying to weaken that. The insurgents are trying to get the same support, but they'll use different tactics. The people then become the objective. They're not something that we work around. They're not something that we ignore. They are the objective. They are the point of everything we do. And it's important to remember when we think about how we do it, they are the reason we do it. And so that should be foremost in our mind. And they are not the people. They are not nameless masses. They're a family. Abdul Nasser Khan and his family. And you have to think through their eyes to be effective in winning this argument. Now, it's not a popularity contest. Sometimes people misinterpret counterinsurgency as who can give the most, who can go down and give the most development projects, who can be the nicest, who can drink the most cups of tea. But that's not the way it works. People are rational and they make decisions that make sense. This family is not going to respond to you coming and sitting and drinking tea with them if, in fact, the insurgents can do several things. If the insurgents can come at night and threaten them, they have to put that in their calculus. And if the insurgents say, if you work with the coalition, that we'll harm you, it's unlikely that they can make the decision because you can't protect them. You can't protect them from that threat. But also, what if the insurgents offer something? What if they offer law? What if Abdul Nasser Khan has a land dispute with his neighbor? And that land dispute is something that he can't get solved through the government of Afghanistan's courts without paying a bribe. And the insurgents come, in this case the Taliban, they said, we will solve that, no bribe, it'll be fair between the two of you and it will stand. Now suddenly the insurgents have provided something that the government can't provide. It's not a popularity contest, it's back to rational weighing of what is best for he and his family. So we have a requirement to understand what he wants, what he needs, if we're going to address any chance of actually winning the argument. So credibility, legitimacy, and capability, our ability to have him believe us, our ability to actually follow through in our promises. If we say we will come, we will protect you. If we can't protect him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's not real protection. Even if we're around all the days, if he gets a night letter at night that says, we're going to kill your other son, that becomes part of his calculus. And if he doesn't have the ability to stop that threat, then in fact, our credibility or lack of demonstrated capability makes him make the decision to back the Taliban. It's not necessarily because he likes or believes in their ideology, but he makes a rational decision. And that's part of the argumentative process. That's where we have to think, this is what we're working for, but we can't force them. We've got to convince them, but we've got to convince them not through clever words, but through effective, proven actions. And that's key. And we'll talk through how you do that.